Forging a successful career path begins from your foundation, a foundation of quality and professional education. It is a weapon of transformation and a passport to the future. Kmer's credibility and years of training thousands of professionals in HND, BTech, BSc, and MBA in the schools of Business and Management Sciences, Engineering and Education, with remarkable mentorship from the University of Bamenda for the BTech and MBA and the University of Boya for the BSc program is second to none. From committed professors and lecturers in classrooms to numerous academic field trips, internships and workshops, Kmer will reform and guide you towards your success. Admissions are now open in our Boya and Douala campuses. Join us. Together, we will build a legacy.
Kmer is what it is today because of its excellent and competent teachers.
You choosing Kmer to be the perfect place to gain that professionalism that you need to further your educational career.
The Higher Institute of Business Management and Technology, the University Institute for Professionals.
Good evening, televiewers. You are welcome to Prime Hour on my media. Prime this Friday, the 6th of November 2020. This day we are going to be looking at the balance sheet of the President of the Republic, His Excellency President Paul Biya, who took office on the 6th of November 1982. 38 years on, what has been the balance sheet as far as stewarding the nation Cameroon is? We all are living witnesses to what the country is going through. Our panelists are going to tell us, make the appreciations on what the president has made of this nation, one of the finest in Africa. We are going to be talking with our panelists. Yes, they are already here, two of them. We are waiting the others to arrive. Dr. Ningwanyam is in the house. He is a member of the ruling CPDM party. He is an educationist par excellence, a social entrepreneur. We are glad to have you with us, Doctor.
Thank you very much. This is a sensitive topic we are dealing with tonight. And, you know, it's so sensitive that I will try as much as possible to work on principles, not emotions. You are asking that we do a SWOT analysis of the president's 38 years in power. But what I would like to call the attention of the public to is that though we are talking about the president, we are talking at the same time about the government.
Yes.
And you would realize that there is, when we take that whole, the government seems to have a certain mind, and the president has to have seems to have a certain mind and a way of doing business. So we look into that.
Okay. Also with us all the way from Boya is Solomon Ate. He is a member of the civil society and a youth for that matter. We are glad to have you.
Thank you. And thanks for having me here. And at the same time, I'm glad to be with Dr. Nick here, which I respect so much. And being a member of the ruling party and has a very objective position on the Anglophone crisis, I would really like to seize this opportunity to appreciate him for that. I've been watching you on this platform, and I've seen your objective analysis, and I hope that we're going to exchange here today to learn better on how we can make the country move forward.
Thank you.
We are expecting Barrister Achu Julius to be joining us in the course of the program, and Alex Angipi of the CRM movement. We expect them to join us before we move any distance from here. 38 years of President Paul Biya. Some people see it as 38 years of resilience.
38 years of resilience, I would have loved them to define what they mean by resilience.
Okay.
It should be 38 years of progress, not 38 years. Resilience in the sense that probably the economy has been very tough. Resilience in the sense that managing a third world country like this, when we don't have a lot of value sets in place, can be, of course, very tricky. Difficult in the sense that, you know, we've had a lot of youth problems, all sorts of problems that you can think of. And I have taken a lot of time to meditate over these problems for a very long time, and probably that's what gives me a different perspective to what we are facing.
Okay, so you think it's not been resilience? The president, when he took power, he was faced with the issue of the coup d'etat. We've had the economic crisis. We've had all sorts of challenges, but he's still there at the end of it.
Yes, resilience in the sense that I was thinking about that too. You know, opening up and going out there and letting people be. He had to change strategies, so to speak, and then close up a little bit for the sake of security. And I think when he did that, a lot of people around him, they went so much for politics and security that many people forgot the economic development, you know, working to create opportunities for the youths and many other things. So at the end of the day, yeah, we can talk about resilience because a couple of things could have been done better.
Okay, a couple of things could have been done better. Do you also see the President of the Republic as having been resilient for 38 years, overcoming, surmounting the different challenges posed to the nation and his personality?
Exactly, in as much as I disagree a lot with the president and his management of the country, but you equally have to be objective to understand that the president has been resilient. First of all, congratulations for being in power for 38 years. He himself, he said in French, I'm not really good in French, but he said, ne Dieu au pouvoir qui peut et non qui veut. That means for you to be in power for 38 years, it's not given to anybody. So just for that alone has been resilient. And looking at the numerous crises that we have in Cameroon today and the country is still standing tall, you have that impression that the president is still standing tall and being resilient. We are talking about the Anglophone crisis today. If the president was not strategic, we wouldn't have been talking about the crisis that it is now. We would have been talking about a full-blown war, not just in the Anglophone crisis, but in other regions of the country with the threats of taking over power from the opposition and all the security challenges that we've seen around the issues of Boko Haram and the refugee crisis in the east of the country. And with all of these combined, you might be tempted to think align with the supporters of the president and to conclude that he has been a resilient head of state. I think, and in peace and security-wise, he's really been that resilient.
Okay. He's been resilient at this time. Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, now let's look at this whole concept of rigor and moralization that the president came to power with 38 years. Can we still be talking of this concept, rigor and moralization? Has it been central in the management style of President Paul Biya?
In fact, you know, when the president took over power and then he came up with this functional phrase, this caption, everybody went for it. And it made a lot of sense because, you know, there is no way you can develop as an individual, a nation, or a community, or even a business if you don't stick to rigor and moralization. Rigor and moralization would therefore mean that, you know, you are working based on truth, you are working based on respect, on merit, and that love is a key issue in whatever you do. And therefore, whether in good times or in bad times, rigor and moralization should be part of the formula. And but we get the impression that after the coup d'etat, you know, the president, you know, co-opted some other people whom I believe he thought were closer to him and would help him sail through the bad times. But these people, one gets the impression that they were more interested in themselves than in common good. And we have evidence of that in the president's speech in 2013, December 31st, 2013, when the president himself came out to say, you know, clearly that Cameroonians were suffering, number one, from inertia, and number two, that many people were interested only in their personal affairs and not common good. And that is the real diagnosis that the president made in 2013. But what the president failed to do was to prescribe the treatment for that, and we are still suffering from the disease till date.
Okay, so rigor and moralization dissipated immediately after it took
Yes,
power?
it dissipated immediately, and then corruption took over, favoritism took over, non-respect of citizens and state institutions took over, and therefore we were just a ship afloat, at sea, and you could tell that when the president would appoint somebody in a post of responsibility, that person, instead of working for the general good, would be working more for himself. He would take, be it a corporation or a ministry, he would take it as though it was his private business. And then in some of those corporations, the people have stayed there for donkey years, and at the end of the day, they can't tell that it's a state property, and they think it is their own, or it belongs to the village or the family or whatever. So most of these ills now became ingrained in the system.
Okay, we also have just been joined by Engineer Elvis Bane, the National Communication Secretary for the Popular Action Party. Good evening and welcome. And I will start by asking you your appraisal of President Biya's 38 years stay at the helm of Cameroon.
Yeah, good evening, sir, and good evening to all co-panelists. Good evening to all televiewers of my prime. 38 years in power, well, to me, I would say it is a national catastrophe. To me, it is a disaster, and it is rather, to me, it's a day that Cameroonians are supposed to mourn, because Mr. Biya accession to power in 1982 till date, like we say, that is close to 4 decades. But I don't think that there is anything that we can really write home with as far as his leadership is concerned.
Yeah, why would you say so? He's been there. I'm sure there are some major strides that have been made in some quarters, if not all.
Well, except you can help me maybe cite some of such, because when I just came in, I got one of my panelists. I'm sorry, sir, I will get you to know your name. He said he was okay, Mr. Ate. He said he was congratulating Mr. Biya for being there for 38 years.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think Cameroon is Mr. Biya's personal property, that he should sit there for 38 years and we are out to congratulate him. Now, it's not like even saying that 38 years we could not congratulate him if he were doing the right thing, you see. But the problem is that after 38 years, like I've said, I don't see anything. Cameroonians are lamenting, be it in education, be it in the domain of employment, be it in the security, and even now coupled with the Anglophone crisis and other issues. I say Cameroonians are all crying foul to what this regime has brought upon Cameroonians. And like I say, except you may help me or any other Cameroonian could convince me by citing what Mr. Biya has done, I still think that this day is a day when we should rather be mourning rather than celebrating. And when we talk about celebration, you cannot be celebrating someone's day, let me call it someone's birthday, when the president himself is not even present. Where is Mr. Biya today? At least this is a day when he could even come out and then maybe address the nation, address the situation in the northwest and the southwest regions. Those are children that were kicked in Kumba last 24th October, but he's nowhere to be found. If he has overtraveled, we see a tweet. And I often like to ask this question, are those tweets even from him? I don't think that we can be appreciating someone as a leader who is nowhere to be found, and when we've overtried, we see that his effigies that are hung in offices, and then we say we are celebrating. No, I don't think so.
No, it's 38 years of President Paul Biya as President of the Republic of Cameroon. Is he there for 38 years because Cameroonians want him to be there? Like he said, that it is not he who wants to be president, but he who can. Or the fact that he loves power. He really wants to be there for 38 years.
I think that there is a difference between legality and legitimacy. President Paul Biya is legally the president of Cameroon, but I sincerely doubt if he is legitimately the president of Cameroon, because it is surprising to see that for 38 years, Cameroonians do not believe in another person, and they just believe in one person. And these same Cameroonians are the ones who decry every day. The Anglophones are decrying of marginalization. These people are decrying of poor infrastructure. The other people are decrying of this and that. But at the same time, when elections come up, you see you see the president winning a landslide victory of 75%, 85%, 90%, and you ask yourself if at all other people that are really interested in gaining political position or becoming president in Cameroon, or these people are not known by Cameroonians, or is it like they actually do not have a political agenda or they don't have a manifesto to sell to the people. But I think it's something far than that. Somebody might be there for 38 years. I'm sorry, my brother, when you came in, I congratulated the president, but there's a difference between congratulating the president for being there for 38 years and congratulating him for actually doing the job that Cameroonians are doing. So when I say congratulations, it doesn't simply mean that I endorse him for being there for 38 years. So I was congratulating him within the context of resilience. And so for somebody to be there for 38 years, it means that the person is resilient. But the question now is, has the president been able to do what the people want? I think that in the context of education, the president has succeeded to create 7 universities out of the 10 regions that we have in Cameroon. And when you look at the literacy rate in Cameroon, it is far beyond some other countries in Africa.
We are going to look at those
areas. So at the end, some of these things you may be tempted to think that the president is there because the people want, but the underlying truth is that there is some malaise that the people are suffering, and if the democratic process was as free as it is being said, I don't think he would have been still there.
Okay, he would not have been there. Let's look at democracy. Can President Paul Biya today, can he be called the father of democracy in Africa, because multipartyism was reintroduced into Cameroon in the early 90s while he was acting and still acting as president of the republic? And then what has been your appreciation of the democratic process, the democratic instruments in Cameroon?
You see, when you mention democracy and Cameroon, then we must define the elements that we are using to define that concept of democracy. If we are going by the number of political parties, and you know that there are 350 of them, then you will say that we are champions in Africa. I mean, you cannot have 350 political parties and you are not the first in democracy. That will not be fair. But if you are talking democracy in terms of what really happens, then one would doubt it, because for that democracy to be advanced and mature, we don't need more than 5 political parties. So those 350 political parties is a digression from truth, it's a diversion from truth. And in as much as we have 350 political parties, don't forget that it's not the president who created those parties for those people. They are Cameroonians, very greedy Cameroonians, who 350 of them, each of them were looking for power. And you know, if Barrister Achu was here, Barrister Achu is even encouraging each and every one of us who disagrees, you know, to go create their own party and so on. So you see, it's just diversionary tactics like this. So at the end of the day, the whole thing is watered down. And then, so when you say, oh, there's no democracy in Cameroon, there's no democracy, 350 political parties, what do you want? It's a great move. But the bottom line is that all those 350 political parties, they are all greedy fellows. So as long as you are dealing with greedy fellows, there is no, I mean, forget about them. And besides, you know what, because I've been meditating a lot, I said something the other day on social media, and I will say it here. Watch me. If you take the problems, when you take the problems of Africa and Cameroon and really go through them, you would see that everybody is excited about politics. But that excitement about politics is not because people really want to take care of common good. The politics in Africa is just like there is this enterprise that has all the goodies, and anybody who fights and get there can feed himself and his family. That's the way I say it. Because we all depend on the natural resources, this and that. But the bottom line is, out of those 350 political parties, including the SDF, the MRC, and all those Cabrals and all those people who make noise, none, I said none of them has what it takes to get this country out of the mess. All they are looking for is that, you know, it doesn't matter how President Paul Biya, how good he would be, throw banana peelings and rotten eggs at him, get him out of the way, get in there and sit in there and also feed yourself and your family. That's all they're interested in. Now, how do I get to that conclusion? You know, it takes the right education. It takes the right education for a people to be mature. It takes the right education. And unfortunately, Cameroon has had the wrong education for a very long time. So you see, a lot of these people who are talking, if we brought them on the platform here and say, tell us how you fix this problem, tell us how you fix this one, tell us how you fix this one, tell us how you fix this one, and ask them deep entrepreneurial questions, they wouldn't answer. So this is the problem with Africans and Cameroonians. As I said before, number one, they don't understand problems. Not at all. Number two, they don't know how to solve problems because you cannot solve what you didn't understand. And number three, they don't know how to create wealth because technically, that's what the government is all about. And when you create wealth, by creating wealth, you put in mechanisms and whatever in the environment and make things happen and make entrepreneurs grow and make the private sector take over the civil service and make sure that accountability is top form and make sure that there is respect, make sure that things are yielding fruit. But here we are with a set of people who don't understand. And a great indicator is that the President Paul Biya has been in a real mess in the sense that you can see the number of governments he has tried to put in place. But each government comes up, but everybody is interested only in their mouths and their pockets. So he keeps going this merry-go-round, hoping that there will be a change. And there can be no change because, like I said, the education, the basic education that we have in Cameroon is wrong. It's not as good as the education in South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, Finland, where people are responsible and know how to solve problems, understand problems, and can create wealth. As long as you cannot create wealth in the country, forget it.
Okay. Esther writing from Yaoundé says, good evening, Mr. Liu and co-panelist. Mr. Biya has tried, so we accept, but he should let another person to also try. It's too much. We are tired. Okay. Esther, good evening, and to you, Anita. Enotakan says, good evening to you all. It's dark already and no speech yet from the president. We are still waiting to pop the 38th anniversary champagne. No, the president of the republic does not deliver speeches during such occasions. It's the militants who are celebrating, who are supposed to celebrate. But this year here, a communique was issued that there are going to be no open celebrations. Dr. Nick, I don't know whether I can confirm that information or when Barrister Achu Julius comes. He just indicated that he's on his way coming.
I think Barrister Julius should talk about that.
Okay. Yes, we should know. When we look at the President of the Republic for 38 years, most of his collaborators, many of them are in prison today. Are we saying that he lacks good judgment on those with whom to work? Because he appointed most of them.
That's a very excellent question. And I will say that for you to appoint collaborators and at the end of each person's term of office, he finds himself behind bars. It points out to the fact that the person who is behind bars is not the problem, but you who appointed that person. Why do I say so? You cannot appoint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 governments, and each time they leave office, they end in prison. It means that you yourself, you lack the judgment of the person that you brought into your own government. So again, it comes back to what I started by saying, that I don't see anything to celebrate Mr. Biya, because there are Cameroonians who can do far better off than the person she has been working with. But ironically, like Doctor was just saying, the irony here is that he has been dealing with the same group of persons. Even when Doctor said that he has changed many governments, ironically you discover that he changes government, but they are the same persons. Somebody goes to the Ministry of Secondary Education today, fails, and then in the next government he goes to higher education, fails. The next moment he's going to scientific research, the same person. Is it like saying that we don't support other Cameroonians who could do certain things? I don't think so. But the problem is that, like Dr. Daly said here, it is a government where people are fighting for self-interest and not the general interest of the Cameroonians. And so at the end of the day, Mr. Biya is comfortable with the clique of friends that he has around him because they best understand themselves and they know how to go about despoiling the national cake. What was supposed to be shared for every other person has become their personal something. And now, remember that most of those who are even behind bars today, at one point in time, you understand that it is more of a political issue even, and not even, it's true that they embezzle, but when you even end up behind bars, it is more of a political issue, maybe for those who start, let me say, who at the end of the day no longer toe the line as wanted by the creator who created them there. Because even those who are in government today are not safe, they are all corrupt ministers. There are people who are all, their hands are all stained with corruption in one way or the other. There are people who we've seen their lapses. Take when you listen to some of our ministers today talk, at one point in time you even start questioning even their level of education. You start questioning how did they even get to where they are today as ministers. But like we say, ironically, he will change the government and you will find the same persons either maintaining office or moving, simply shifting to the next office. So I don't want to think that the problem here, there is one Cameroonian, I think that was the bâtonnier Akeremuna, who once said something, and I will try to maybe just paraphrase. He said, if you buy a bulb, for instance, and you bring it to your home and it gets blown off, and you buy the second and the same thing happens, you buy the third, the same thing happens, at least you should be able to stop for once to find out if the problem is not the connection in your house. You should not. It should not look like you want to prove to the world that you can buy all the bulbs in the market by simply buying the bulbs repeatedly without trying to find out why they keep getting bad. Something could be wrong with the connections in your home. So Mr. Bia's regime for 38 years has been a catastrophe because he has worked with practically the same persons. But remember, we are in a country where we have even young Cameroonians today who have proven their worth. Go back internationally. There is no Cameroonian you will find out there who is not excelling in his own field, in his own domain. But why do those people not come back home to work? Because the government does not give room for people who know and who can better apply themselves in their respective areas. On the contrary, it is a government that goes with mediocrity. They prefer people who are loyal to an individual than being loyal to their country. So if you come into Mr. Bia's government and you prove that you can work to better save the interests of Cameroonians, at the end of the day, you rather become a problem to him and his regime. And I think that's just where the problem lies.
Yeah, but why don't you also think that the collaborators appointed by President Paul Biya were taken by greed and end up disappointing the President of the Republic?
I may not want to put the full blame on President Biya, because if you look at the context under which Cameroon operates, we first of all need to understand that individual responsibilities are given, but it is how you take your responsibility and make it people-centered and party-centered. That's where you know the difference between the governance of Biya and his people. The collaborators seem to have, most of his collaborators, I call it the cabal, seem to have made the governance system of Cameroon seems a person-centered. And by so doing, they don't take personal initiative. If you remember very well, I think it should be 2015 or 14, no, 2013, President Biya made a speech and complained about Inesha, and he was talking about complaining about his own government. It therefore tells you that he's kind of frustrated, because if a president can ask, why is it that people are not doing this? He talked about administrative bottlenecks.
Yeah, he raised the issue that things that work easily
elsewhere, but it doesn't work here. It shows that he has that good faith. But sometimes when you put in policies, people tend to want to play around with politics. You know that a government doesn't function as many of us see it. Sometimes we see it as it's green over the fence, but when you are in the system, you may feel like sometimes it's difficult for him to take adequate action because of the fact that you may not want to jeopardize your sitting in position as head of state. You may not want to jeopardize your sitting in position within your region. But my problem comes with the individual administrators, like we see with the various ministers. Biya did not ask ministers to be quoting the Bible left and right. Biya did not ask ministers to stay and go on a trip twice in a particular area which they should have gone once. Biya did not ask the SDO in Fako and the DO to be dealing with lands and left and right. Biya simply gave them the position that do this as a job. But when we see how administrative officials go about carrying out activities, it is kind of bringing a policy where it is more of man-centered than people-centered. There is a policy that they have inculcated in Cameroon, and they have redefined patriotism. O Cameroon, cradle of our fathers, thou holy Sharen in amidst the Narupos. There's a part I love so much in the anthem, Leonard. Dear fatherland, thy worth no tongue can tell. But when you look at the way the ministers are governing, it gives me to a question whether they have gone to the details of the anthem, which is supposed to be the raison d'etre as to why we are here. Because when you look at their worth no tongue can tell, and look at the worth we are seeing now from the ministers, the worth we are seeing from the government, it is truly that no tongue can tell within the system of governance, because it's not just Biya we should blame here. It is collective. Leona, even individually we have problems. Individual Cameroonians, they keep blaming Biya. But when you look at how they govern their Jange groups, when you look at how they govern their institutions, when you look at how they govern their various associations that they are, you are tempted to ask a question. Is this person Biya? Look at the Professor Maurice Kamto. Look at his cabinet. The worst is, when you look at how he's structured, it is he's more of President Biya. If you try assessing Kamto resident or to get a contact of Kamto, if you are in this Douala, you have to call someone in Douala, who will call someone in Yaoundé, who will call someone and book an audience, and you finally meet Professor Maurice Kamto. Your phones will be taken off, and you are asked to sit in. You see a kind of system, and you ask, we blame Biya. At the end of the day, it is, to me, this 38th anniversary is a moment of reflection as each individual, as each Cameroonian. If we are blaming Biya, we are Biya in our own endeavors that we do. We are Biya in our own homes. Some of us are even worse than Biya in our homes. But we keep looking at Biya up there. But when we start from ground level, I think we should start from the bottom approach before going to the top. A bottom-top approach is better. How do we do this? By individually, Dr. Nick and everybody in this panel, start by the different sector, morning good governance, good leadership. We start harnessing. That's how it goes like a spiral effect. But to me, however, I want to conclude on this by saying that Biya is not the problem. Cameroonians are the problem, because the day they will decide, that day actions will be taken. That's just to me. To me, they are still in the dark.
Okay, they're still in the dark. Some people see the presidency of President Paul Biya as one that is based on slogans. We started with rigor and moralization. Yeah. We had greater ambitions, greater realizations, greater everything. But on the ground, seemingly, we don't feel it.
Exactly. The most paradoxical part of it is the rigor and moralization part of it. When the president came, I wasn't alive at that time. It was unfortunate that I came up and I saw a president who has been there for long, and I'm now a mature person, and the president is still there. I don't even know when he's going to go. It's really a big paradox. And I heard that he came up with a rigor and moralization policy. But today we see it. The anti-corruption struggle of President Paul Biya. From my own analysis, I look at it as if it was more of a political settlement of scores that takes place there. Because somebody said here that if something keep happening over and over with the ministers, then something is wrong with the head. And I think that is where the problem is. The president cannot claim that he appoints people that he does not know, because I happen to have volunteered in a civil society organization where I was charged with the recruitment process of that organization. It was a privilege for me to be in charge of the recruitment process of that organization. But if they tell me, Solomon, recruit a communication officer, I will not go and recruit somebody who has a background in banking and finance and ask that person to become a communication officer. It means that I do not know what I'm doing. But we've seen people in this country who've held sensitive positions like communication, who do not have a mastery of communication. And in times of crisis, you find those people going about inflaming the crisis up to where we are today in the northwest and southwest region. Who thought that communication is about handling iron? Human beings are like iron, where you bend them with force and then they respect you. So it has been more about like slogans instead of putting the real actions into place, and we've come to be the victims of these slogans all over. We're going to be having greater achievement. We are going to be having from greater ambitions. We have the greater ambitions to greater achievement. I don't know this latest one today, because it looks like every presidential election we come up with a slogan. Yeah, we're done with the great achievements, and now there is another slogan that I can.
Realization.
That's the French version of great achievement. And so I don't know which one we are today. And we have lived on slogan up to the point where we have been given the chance to host the Nations Cup, and we use slogans, and the slogans finally failed us. So I think that there is a problem in this country where we need to address the problem of indiscipline. We fail to discipline people who have not delivered. When somebody has not delivered, instead of us disciplining that person, we promote that person. What does that tell you? It tells you that if you give me a position, in as much as I will not respect the rules, if as much as I will not respect, I should keep on singing praises to the president, and then I get promoted. That is what we're promoting.
Good evening, Mr. Kum. This is Justice Longang writing from Idea, my friend. I promise to come to Idea. I will definitely be there, I'm sure, next week. A person with a big head should be ready to receive knocks. Mr. Biya has been resilient, and he is a good leader and not a leader for good. We can't say he has done nothing but to be genuine. Let him and others be mentors to youths who want to step up from where he is now. A leader for good is one who is willing to develop people to the point that they surpass him and her in knowledge and ability, not staying in power for long. As concerning the bottom to top, Jarvis is saying he should not forget that when the source of a stream is dirty, people can't carry clean water from the stream. Stop calling, please. Good evening to you, my bro. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's Elvis from Limbe, the town of friendship. I pray God continue to give you the power to do what you guys are doing. They say it is good to leave the stage when people still applaud for you. Mr. Abia should step down. He's tired. Thanks. Okay. Elvis from Limbe, good evening to you. Tabot Machiavelli writing from Yaoundé, say greetings everyone and happy 38th anniversary to the President of the Republic. For 38 years, what's Cameroon, a small nation among third world countries, doing with more than 80 ministerial positions, minister delegates and assistant ministers and so on? What is the use of the Senate? Because it's a drainage to the economy. Thank you, Tabot Machiavelli there from Yaoundé. Now, we are looking at the President of the Republic, and do you think, like some people, that he's been elevated to the position of a god? Because nobody says anything from their mindset. Everything is with high instructions from the President of the Republic. Even if you were to interview a principal today, the principal would quote the President of the Republic.
It's just an unfortunate outcome. You know, a lot of people do not speak their minds. They speak out of fear. They speak out of emotions, and they don't do things the way they are expected to do them. So, like I was saying, you know, the government is responsible for the politics, okay, and then the economy. The politics actually is just about putting in mechanisms for achieving something, some development and some economic progress and that. But we have forgotten about development, we have forgotten about economics, we've forgotten about education and everything, and we've concentrated on politics. How do we go from one season to the other? And then many people discover that if you spend, even if you are a civil servant, a minister, or if you spend 60% of your time trying to show that you love the president more than your brother over there, then next time when they're looking at things, they will say you are a genuine person just because you sing harder and then you defend the president everywhere. So people have forgotten what they should concentrate on. What I'm saying is this: when the president puts someone in place, the president expects you to be delivering, to be working. So technically, if you love the president and you want the president to succeed, and you want the president to be loved by everybody, and you want the government to be seen to be very good, what you do is to work in a manner that God will appreciate your work. Work in a manner that every other Cameroonian will love you. Like I think I can't remember whether it's somebody junior who said in America, if you are a sweeper, sweep, be the best sweeper. If you are a cook, be the best cook. If we are the best of ourselves at everything that we are doing, we will not be where we are. It's because a lot of people are fake. You know, there was one minister who was saying Fimbagras the other day. You don't feel fake people. Fake. You know, so many fake people, even out there. So it's very disheartening. Fake from morning to evening. That's the problem. Oh God, I feel pain.
The minister said what?
Fimbagras or something like that. I don't know where she came from. Some crazy fellows. Honestly, I don't want to talk about them. There are a lot of primitive people in that thing.
Okay. Okay. The president is doing everything possible to fight corruption, so that the concept of rigor and moralization holds water as far as his governance of the country is concerned. But when you look at the fight for corruption and you look at what is happening in our secondary schools now, in our hospitals, you think that corruption is effectively being fought in Cameroon?
Well, I don't know why you are citing secondary schools and hospitals only.
For example, I say for example.
corruption is something that has come to stay in Cameroon. That's what I can rather say. Because when you look at even the institutions put in place to fight that same corruption by the head of state, how effective are those institutions? That is the question we should be asking. They are not effective in fighting the corruption because take Konak, for instance, they will tell you, for instance, that there are certain personalities that for you to follow them up and maybe charge them of being corrupt, you need authorization. Again, you need some permit coming from the presidency and all whatnot. And we know how it all happens in Cameroon. People, someone is somebody somewhere because he has somebody to defend his interest. And so when you go towards somebody whom you think is corrupt, and there is another person high up there in office who will call you and tell you to forget to close that file, to keep it aside, then I don't see how corruption we can see is effective. Remember that Cameroon today perhaps is the only country where you hear a young Cameroonian in the quarters openly tell you that if they were to appoint him in an office, he would prefer to embezzle and go into prison, and then the family enjoys what he has embezzled. When you hear a young Cameroonian, when you hear a youth tell you such a thing, it is to tell you that the corruption has gone to a point where they know that even those that they pretentiously tell us are behind bars because they embezzle or whatever thing, we rather transform them to stars. Because a petty thief in the quarter who steals a goat is killed the very next second. But when you find someone who embezzles 50 billion, he's rather elevated to the point of a star where he has bodyguards, they parade him on TV, he has a special air conditioning room in the so-called prison. He can go out at will and stroll and buy from whatever supermarket he so desires. So at the end of the day, are we fighting corruption? And that's why you hear youth in the country openly tell you that if they were appointed somewhere, they would prefer to embezzle. It tells you that we are simply, the society today is almost working as a reflection of what the regime has, of what Mr. Biya incarnates. And it comes back to what my brother said there, and I would like to disagree with him when he says it begins from bottom to top. No, I don't think so. In French, they say tout poisson pourri par la tête. It begins from up there. You cannot be up there if you are a leader. Who is a leader? You are supposed to be the person to trace the roadmap. You are supposed to be the person to inspire people. You are supposed to be the person to see into it that what you desire for your people is achieved. But like we were saying a few minutes ago, if you keep appointing the wrong persons who embezzle and you maintain them in government, then honestly, I don't think that you are doing anything good for the country. And you talk about reflection. The only person whom I think should be reflecting actually today in this country is Mr. Biya himself. He should sit down and reflect. 38 years in power, what has he done for Cameroon? Nothing. He needs to reflect, and I think the only thing he can do as of now is to resign. Corruption, like I say, has come to stay as far as Mr. Biya Paul is concerned, because even till now, as we are talking presently, there are people in their offices signing documents, not because the documents they are signing would be to the best interest of the country, but they are signing documents to fake receipts and checks and all one not. When you go to a minister's office and you see the number of bunks that they have for petrol, then you begin to wonder if they use the jets to leave their homes and get to their offices in the morning.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Right on with your work. May God bless you. We shouldn't really blame our president, but rather the people under him. Money is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Good evening, Jarvis. I love the way you talk, but you spoiled it at the end. All the same, Mr. Paul Biya is to blame. If Cameroonians think like that, it's the type of education he brought to Cameroon. Clovis is writing from Mutengene. Greetings, Mr. Liu. There is practically nothing good to say about him. What we need in this nation is God. Okay. Hello, good evening. Sir, I'm Eric Wheezy. In fact, we are tired. You should go and give space for another person. He has failed. You see the war in the northwest and southwest he cannot solve because he used old strategy in solving the problem. Thank you. Please make your messages short to the point. When they are long, I can't read them. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Jacqueline writing from Bamenda, and I love your program. Please let Mr. Biya get rid of old ministers and bring in new young blood. Let them be freedom of speech, press, and that's democracy. Do you also think, like she is writing from Bamenda, that the President of the Republic has maintained very old persons around the government apparatus?
To say that they've maintained, I think, is an understatement, because we understand that one of the characteristics for you to be in top position of this country, you must be of the ancestral generation. You must be of a certain kind of born at early 1907 or kind of stuff like that. I think if I go by what we see now, that's why you see ministers will go and bury the bereaved, and you see they will say Fako is in Kumba, is in Fako, because of the age factor. It's not because of the fact that they are though, it's just the age factor. You know, I think age factor has a great role to play. Secondly, Leona, I want to look at the issue of the government. The government has done a lot, but in terms of bringing in these old people, to me, I don't see it as very important in terms of developing the country, because they think as far as things were, as it was before, so it is now, and so should it be. But they don't understand that we are in a rapidly changing world, what we call a homo exercens. We are no longer in a homo sapien age, we are in a homo exercens. Homo exercens means a practicing man. That means man keep evolving, developing from IQ to IQ, from knowledge to different level. So things that used to apply in 1990, policies that used to apply in 1990, virtually those policies will not apply in 2020, will not apply in 2035, and the policy of 2020 will not even apply in 2035 when Cameroon emerge. By so doing, you need to have a blend as to who takes over various ministries. I'm not against the old people taking part, because they say age comes with wisdom, and when you have this age, we believe that it comes with wisdom. However, there should be a kind of sandwich in terms of Ministry of Scientific Research and Innovation. Some kind of ministry should be piloted by people within a particular age range that cut across between the semi-ancestral and the new age period, such that these persons can now quote and bring in modalities that will fit into. You know, we have ministers who cannot open a Gmail, who cannot access a Gmail. We have ministers who cannot send a simple email. Now, we are in a world that everything is now more of email, everything is virtual. We keep talking about virtual. That's why you see online education is still a problem in Cameroon. It's a massive problem, because they believe that education must be a full wall of classroom. Thus, even when you come with a certificate that you may have acquired from a virtual learning, they feel like it's not important and you do not study. But when you look at the context of other countries who has these ministers with level-headed, online education is something they have embraced. But in Cameroon, it's still not a policy. Thanks to Corona, I want to say a big thanks to Corona, we have gradually embraced online education, and they are now shifting policies on online education. That should tell you that the world is rapidly changing. So we need people who can adapt to this constantly rapidly changing world. Okay. But I want to just conclude by saying what he said, that when the source of the water is dirty, you cannot drink water. Water is water. And secondly, you can go and clean the source if you know that this is where the source comes from.
Okay. Okay. 38 years, President Paul Biya has been fighting corruption, yet we are amongst the top-ranking corrupt countries in the world. He is not competent like his ministers. Clue is writing from Mutengene. Good evening, Mr. Kum, and to all the panelists. I think what the CPDM did today in the name of anniversary is actually the funeral of Mr. Biya. How can they be celebrating the president's 38th anniversary and he himself is not present, and we are not told why he is absent? What do Yaoundé take us for? Rosemary writing from Bomenda. Good evening to you, Rosemary. Good evening to you there in the studio. I'm Zong James writing from Womb. I want to congratulate Dr. Nick, for I doubt if he really is CPDM militant. He is just the type of person that we want in this country for it to move forward. I pity what Jarvis is saying, that the president can't be blamed. I doubt him. Is he saying that if a father fails to bring up the children in good, he shouldn't be blamed? Good evening, Prime. I love the program, Mr. Jarvis. Right on. I'm coolest kid writing from Bamenda. Okay, now let's look at the efficiency of the government. The president appoints a government, and once you embezzle, we have prime ministers who are in prison. We have the biggest of ministers of public health, education, and are there. Yes, but how efficient are those who are there now? Do we think that they are learning, or they are also afraid not to falter so that they accompany others in Konengi?
I earlier made mention of the fact that we recruit people in positions without even examining their criteria to know if they fit in that position. And I took an example of ministers of communication who have done everything possible to inflame the Anglophone crisis in the Northwest and Southwest region, because they didn't master the art of communication in times of crisis. There was a time where your communication becomes more diplomatic than ever. But in 2016, 2017, where the Anglophone crisis escalated, we expected more from the communication minister and the others who accompanied him in most of the press conferences, and we did not see him playing the role of that communicator who comes out to communicate for the sake of peace. So it cuts across most of the ministries today who have been there in looking at their performance in the field. You cannot actually measure the performance. We're talking about the online learning system where it's been implemented. It's a policy now, but the question is, in reality, is it being implemented? I'm a student in the University of Boya. And we happen to have
you were going to say you're a member of the CPDM.
No. I'm not a member of the CPDM. I'm a member of the University of. I'm a student in the University of Boya, and I happen to have taken part in the online system. And what I came to realize is that the authorities quickly endorsed the online system without doing a necessary assessment of whether it's going to be implemented. We shouldn't just copy things from people abroad and say what works in America can actually work in Cameroon. We didn't do a thorough assessment to look at the income of the students who will be taking these online courses, to see if they can even afford. How many of them even have Android phones that can stay connected? How many of them even have laptops? We saw some laptops that were distributed. I don't want to go into that debate because it's the debate of its own with all the things that we know about the laptops. And today, we have ministers who have come out with policies, sweeping policies, and they sound very sweet, but the implementation stage of it is a problem. And at the end of the day, we are going to have these same ministers who are being promoted, and some of them are going to be sent in jail. As said, the anti-corruption process to me seems like it's more about settlement of scores. Some people are found wanting, but they have not been arrested. Some people have been arrested and sent to jail. But you realize that these people who have been arrested and sent to jail, you are expecting that the money should come in. But they are instead there in prison, and the penitentiary is instead using our money to maintain them there in prison, and using that money to maintain them in high-profile prisons, instead of making sure that this money comes back to us so that we can invest them. We are instead using that money to keep them there in prison. So I think that the anti-corruption struggle to me seems to be more of a show instead of the reality.
Good evening, sirs. I would rather suggest that all of you on the panel except the school proprietor should address the president, Grandpapa Bia, and not Mr. Bia. I'm George in Douala. Okay, George, good evening. Good evening, Mr. Liu. All the achievements of the CPDM has been shattered because Mr. Bia has failed to solve the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest. That is why it is good to leave the stage when the applause is loudest. And Ngong, writing from Tunga. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Azar Nelson, writing from Douala Village. Let Mr. Bia step down and give a young man who can take Cameroonians out of this mess. Okay. Good evening. We in Fundong love your TV programs. Ndong Rene, writing from Fundong. Thank you. Ndong, good evening to you and everyone watching us from Fundong in Boyo Division. Hello, Mr. Liu. I mostly blame Cameroonians for they don't master their job in the Cameroon government. President Bia will appoint a minister, and the minister will want the president to tell him what to do in every situation or when there is a problem. Today, if Bia says he wants to dialogue with the separatists, those who are saying no dialogue will be the first to clap for him. I salute Dr. Ngwanyam. By Nwelem Collins, Kajo, okay, writing from Chang. President Paul Bia, it is true, everybody is saying that he's aged, but many people looked with so much enthusiasm and expectations. They're putting in place of some institutions, like the Senate that has been set up. He has created the Commission for Bilingualism to help him solve some of the problems. And when you look at the National Assembly itself, the leadership, the person who is at the helm, he has been there for decades. Do you think that the president is helpless himself? Because all these persons are placed there on party lines now, and he is the national president. How have these persons helped President Biya achieve some of the policies set in place? And if they are not delivering, why maintain them then?
You remember I told you that Cameroon has a problem, and when you look back, this now is, you just said why, and that clicked something in my mind. You see, there are some basic questions that we all, as managers, entrepreneurs, family heads, or people who want to go somewhere, there are a set of 3 questions that you always have to be asking. What? What is it all about? Why? And how? These 3 questions. If you want to go far, you must be asking these questions about anything. The why questions, the why. So you are asking why. So let's ask the question, why is President Paul Biya always putting in these commissions? It's because there are some problems to be solved. Why are the commissions not delivering? The commissions are not delivering because the people who are put there don't even know what it's all about. Why? Because of the bad school system. Why? Because they're there only for themselves. Are you seeing how it comes about? And you can now understand why everything is failing. And it's very unfortunate. You know, President Paul Biya has only one brain, only one head, and 2 hands. And therefore, when there are problems that are relatively well defined or not, he puts in place a commission or a set of people to be able to handle those problems. But the unfortunate thing about those commissions is that they are put there based on political leanings and not competence.
Yes, but how can the president be very comfortable with when you look at the president of the Senate today, and even the way the Senate functions?
No, but I know that.
Are you comfortable with it?
No, I'm coming. I'm developing a theory.
Okay.
So, you see, someone said that we have 80 ministers or people related in that. We don't need them. You need actually only 20 ministers in this country, and then some of the other support ministers. If you, by the time you have gone beyond 30, you have done too much. So you can already tell that all that bulk of ministers is not helping. Number 2, the Senate, watch my lips, is no use. Whoever, doesn't matter who is there, it's no use. Number 2, Commission of Bilingualism is absolutely no use. Number 3, Social and Economic Council. I went to a university in 1977 till today. I'm 64 years old. Don't ask me what they do. I don't know. They are no use. Then I was reflecting very much on ENAM. If you look very carefully at what we call Cameroon, the problems of Cameroon, 80% of the problems of Cameroon are caused by ENAM. Now, because when you go to ENAM, what they put in their head is maintaining law and order. That's all they have in their heads, law and order. But technically, law and order means discipline. But you can be, when you are disciplining your child in the house, then you must be training that child to grow. And I was looking for a practical example to explain this law and order. You know, most of us have seen these big cars that have problems sometimes. So when a car is going uphill and the engine is not doing very well, you know, the motor boy comes to the back of and puts a plank or some stone to wedge the car so it doesn't roll back. That is what law and order is. Don't roll back. Stay where it is. So these people are trained to keep the vehicle where it is, but they are not trained to move the vehicle forward. That's the problem. And therefore, the country needs, while you are keeping law and order, you have to be turning the engine so that the vehicle is going forward. They don't know how to drive the nation forward. By driving the nation forward is about understanding problems, solving problems, creating wealth, and so on. So you see, many of these things are just there, and we go running around in circles because we understand nothing about how things ought to happen. And the only way to do it is if you develop an entrepreneurial spirit and an entrepreneurial mind. Who's an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is someone who identifies problems in the community, and then he sits there and pulls the resources around him and uses his head to bake a cake to solve that problem of hunger. And in solving that problem, he gets paid. But unfortunately, we have a country of civil servants, and our university staff is so poor. You have people training in this subject, philosophy, the history over there, geography over there. You go and get a PhD, you don't know what to do with it. So we have just messed up, wasted time, wasted resources, wasted a lot, and we are going nowhere. That is the huge problem, and we need to recraft everything.
Why are our institutions not functional, Mr. Andrew?
If our institutions do not function, it is because they were never created to function.
Okay.
At one point in time, you see when crises come up, like we have the Anglophone crisis, and then you see Mr. Biya put in place the Bilingualism Commission. I say that commission was never created to function, but I think that they rather sees an opportunity that there's a real problem that needs to be solved in the society, but they rather take as an opportunity to create a commission or an institution to compensate their friends in politics.
Are you saying that the Senate, for example, the President of the Republic refused the Senate from doing its job, for example, checking or looking at the implications of the just contested phone tax? Did they expect the President to come and tell them what to do?
Before I get to that, I consider from the era of the Bilingualism Commission.
Okay.
When that commission is created, for instance, with respect to the Anglophone crisis, how is that related to the root causes of what the people were asking? And that's why I say some of the commissions are created not in the intention of having them work, because even if they work, they will not be addressing the root problems that the people do raise. It's like saying a child comes back from school and tells you that I need a textbook in school for this particular subject, and then you prefer to offer him a pair of shoes when he has asked for a textbook. He's not going to use that pair of shoes to study in class. People raise issues, but Mr. Biya creates commissions that are not related to the issues that are raised. Now you are talking about the Senate. The truth is that I don't see any difference in this country between the Senate and the National Assembly.
Yeah, but
now,
okay, go on.
I don't see the relationship between the two. Now, secondly, I have said it is rather there are institutions that are created to rather compensate political friends, because in reality, like someone was, like you say, you asked, should they wait for Mr. Biya to come in? If you have read the novel Animal Farm, you will understand that at one point in time, the animals elevated their leader Napoleon to the position of a god, where whatever thing he said was gospel truth, and no other person had the right to contest. In Cameroon, even the die-hard supporters of the regime will tell them Mr. Biya is the one who has the mandate. And so when he appoints you, it is a favor he has done to you. So what happens therefore is that whether he appoints you a senator or appoints you a minister, whatever thing, you wait for high instructions from him to do whatever thing you are supposed to, because if you bring in your own personal initiative and you do something that can actually solve the problems of the people, but which goes contrary to what he believes in as your creator, it becomes a problem. Because in that case, you now become more popular in the eyes of the masses than he, Mr. Biya Paul. So you must wait for instructions from him before you act. Mr. Jarvis said something quite important, that when you are outside, you may not understand politics till you get into it. It's not even like all our ministers are bad when it comes to competence. Some of them really can do great than in their offices. But the problem is, what you will be doing there, is it in line with what your creator, Mr. Biya, wants? At times, no. And that is why you have no choice, therefore, than to wait until they instruct you on what to do. And that is why I will answer by simply saying, our institutions cannot work because Mr. Biya himself is not willing to have them work. And it comes back to what we earlier discussed here about leaders who don't do the right thing. And all that. They don't do the right thing, yes. If I'm the head of an institution, maybe I should be using Dr. Sita right here. He has an institution. There is no way he can appoint his deans of studies and all that, and they are not delivering. And he keeps using the same deans of studies and complain that they are not working, but he maintains them in office. It does not make sense. It means that the problem is with doctor. It means that he's the one who doesn't understand exactly what he wants. Because if you are appointing a dean of studies in a faculty, you know what he should deliver. And if he's not doing it, you step in to either bring him back to the rail, or you simply bring in some other person who can do the job. Let's come back to our country. There are people, civil society, and even individuals at home and abroad who have proposed solutions, who have proposed things that could be done in this country. Why not keep out of the CPDM cabal and get neutral persons who are not of that milieu to also come in and try something new? Must someone belong to the CPDM to be able to work in this country as a citizen and be accepted? No. But that is the conception they give Cameroonians today. You must belong to their system before your idea is accepted. And at the end of the day, you understand therefore that when you even propose an idea, at the end of the day, they don't judge you by virtue of what you propose. They start by judging by virtue of where you come from. Okay. They start by judging from where you belong to before they know if your idea could be accepted or not. So their institutions are created to compensate the financially. Let me come back to the Bilingualism Commission. What is Prime Minister, anyway, let me call Prime Minister, His Excellency Peter Mafan, what is he doing there? One man who occupies 5, 6, 7, 8 functions alone in the country at that age, is it because he's the only 100%? I don't think so. There are other persons who can do better. So even if the bilingualism culture has something to do, at least I want to think that other persons could also come in and we try them. It's rather unfortunate that we think that one person can handle 7 functions alone. At one point that you cannot really be competent, because those are high level functions that demand a lot of brain work.
Thank you, Dr. Nick. I wish all these old CPDM guys should understand and all this together. James watching from Germany. Mr. Liu, you can clearly see that we need to manage our resources, okay? Stop calling, please. Senators are too old. Look at the head of the Senate. He can't walk. Look at Chief Mukete. Actually, what is the role of these senators? Okay. James from Germany, good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Joshua Mo, writing from Douala. Yes, President Paul Biya came to power on the 6th of November 1982. 6th of November 2020 makes him 38 years in power. Now there is nothing that I have drawn from this man's government since I was born in 1984. 2 years after I came to power, a coup d'etat and 1986 economic crisis and the educational reforms of the 1990s coupled with multipartism and many related ills. Mr. Liu, 80 years down the line, I cannot lie, the Napoleon of Africa and his kangaroo crew have done totally okay. Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu. The balance sheet of Mr. Biya is 38 wasted years, no good roads, no good schools, an education system zero, no future for the youths. For me, his only achievement is to put army in the Anglophone areas in Cameroon. Fred Fang, writing from Mutengene. Hello, Mr. Liu, I love your program. Firstly, the president was not elected by the people. Power was handed to him, so he doesn't even know his job description. Okay. Ketu Roland, writing from Bamenda. I don't think so. Hi, it's Brandon Call from Limbe. Keep up with the show. I'm enjoying it. Thank you very much. Mr. Leo, please, volume is very low. Please, you guys should look into that. Anything that concerns Cameroon, I don't want to hear. The nation can't never be driven because everybody there in the government is above 80 years. So Cameroon can never have peace, okay? Good evening, Mr. Leo. Great input from the panelists. Mr. Biya is helpless and his leadership has become ineffective over time due to his choice of collaborators. Greetings to Ate Solomon. Major Pierrot is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Council. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm Mek Bear Patrick from Mutengene. I love your program so much. Thank you very much. Greetings to you all. I will concord with Jarvis. Cameroonians collect 50K to vote for Biya. We should be ashamed to say Biya's picture plays a vital role in Cameroon. When Cameroonians will start doing the right thing and stop the blame game, things will change for the good. Alain Fabrice writing from Douala. Good evening to you, Alain Fabrice. Clarion writing from Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates to say, hi, Mr. Liu. Do you select messages before reading on your program? You hardly read my messages, and I wonder why. No. Claron, please keep writing. I'll read. There are so many.
You just read.
Yes. Yes.
I think I want to disagree with my brother on the other side because if you are Dr. Nick is a CPDM, but the fact that he doesn't act based on what the party solely says, it doesn't mean that the CPDM policies are entirely bad. There are some that are bad, and there are some that are good. It doesn't mean that Biya has been in power for over 38 years. He's totally a failure. No. When you assess some points, he has some pitfalls, he has some successes, and he has some undefined platform. We cannot just say that totally. This is it. This is why I disagree with him. The one reason is greed. Cameroonians are greedy. If a president appoints you to do a job, and you see a party, you see the party line, and you see that if you do this, the party will hammer on you. Do it, and let the party hammer on you. The first person will learn. The second person, that's how the awareness start growing. Let me give you examples of people who have been given jobs under the government, and they do it diligently, and the same government still keeps them. It's not that the government keeps you because you must go to party line. I will give you an example. Let's go back to Ndonga Mountain Division. Look at someone like Gala Gerard. You look at someone like Minister Fukalisus Gentry. Now they have their own issues, but when you look at the activity that they are doing at the home front, I'm looking at the home front. I'm not looking at the oyeyeye policy that when they come they preach oyeyeye. I'm looking at what they do, the impact of the common man in their lives. Because if you are an MP, the mayor of Buea, it's not Bia that tells him or whether to provide water in Buea, whether to provide electricity, whether to empty the garbages, whether to construct Moya market, which is highly muddy but one of the best in terms of the most populated market, food market in the entire southwest region, and subsequently providing food in the entire Cameroon or some parts of Cameroon. It is not Bia that will tell him. It is not Bia that will tell the minister, the SDO, to stop giving Mutengene land to non-natives, and it's not Bia. So people need to take on their initiative. I believe it is a triple helix. I like explaining the triple helix system. The triple helix system simply means that we have Bia at the edge and his ministers and his cabinet. We have the common man at the left, and we have opposition party now at the right. The triple helix. If the minister up and Bia is failing, they are failing. Now we have the opposition and the common man at this. It's a triangle. Now, if that is failing, what becomes of these two sides? Invert the pyramid. So you have an inverted pyramid and you empty the garbage. But we don't do that. We simply want to say, I work in the private sector. I'll give you that the highest corruption is not even in the government sector. The highest corruption of this country is in the private sector. When you start looking at how corrupt people are, you send somebody who do a budget, and you look at how a ream of paper which is 3,000 in the private sector. I've seen it. People write 6,000. Is it Bia that comes and says 6,000? That's why I say that.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, why are these things not being checked?
Yo, the issue they are not being checked.
Are they not doing it because they are not?
No.
They are not.
The issue is he stated that when the head is spoiled, the tail is spoiled. Okay. I want to conclude by saying that when we start by at individual level, you as at my media primary, when you move on with a good leadership spirit, Dr. Nick moves on with a good leadership spirit, he moves on with a good leadership spirit. It starts by resonating and bringing out a new Cameroonian, Cameroonians that do not just look at the ABC syndrome. In Cameroon, we have the ABC syndrome: accuse, blame, and condemn. If it's not John, it's Peter. If it's not Peter, it's James. We have the ABC syndrome. It is so deep in our system that we don't take personal initiative.
Okay, we don't take personal initiative. Ati, do you think like some CPDM members looking at their balance sheet, many will tell you that when Bia came to power, we had just 3 universities in Cameroon. We had Changaunduri and Yaoundé, but today they count many, and that we had very few lycées. We have many of them. Do you think that from the educational standpoint, there are many goals scored by President Bia already?
Totally, I will agree on that. Because when I was coming here, I did an assessment. We have quite a good number of universities. If you look at even our neighboring Nigeria, not all the states in Nigeria have universities. But the question is whether these universities really have infrastructure and they are providing the services that are needed, and the staff are well taken care of, and what is the result? The results are that Cameroonians are very intelligent, and they are very qualified in position. But despite creating all of these university, all of these institutions, and putting them out there and training Cameroonians, when those same Cameroonians come out, the job market becomes very challenging for them. And somebody mentioned here that when they travel out of the country, when they go out of the country, you find them very competitive. That's very true. A lot of young Cameroonians are very competitive out there, out of the country, and they're really making it big. But the challenge is that when they come here back at home, it is difficult for them to fit themselves in. And so it becomes a challenge when you create all of these institutions and you train Cameroonians who have proven their worth, but you're unable to absorb them in the system. We've complained about there's nobody to replace the head of state. It's a very funny statement. After creating all of these institutions and training Cameroonians, and they've proven their worth, and we still complain that there is nobody to replace the president. It signifies one thing, that the president himself has failed totally. Because if you fail to produce somebody who will replace you when you're gone, that's the beginning of failure. The big leaders of this nation are those who have groomed leaders to come up and replace them. We've had the President Bia's youth, that has been transformed to the Cameroon Youth Council. Today, if you look at the Cameroon Youth Council, the policies have not shifted quite really from the policies of the President Bia's youth. If you look at the Cameroon Youth Council today, it is still about the same policies but different name. So but when you look at these young people that are really, really competitive out there, and they have proven their worth, and the system is unable to absorb them, and you find the government still recycling the same people. They fail here, they take them and put there, they fail here, they take them and put there, and you find them in the same cycle. So basically the president, I'll be very objective to say that in terms of education, the president has scored a good mark there. I will not be I'll be selfish to say he has not scored a good mark there because I'm not of the CPDM. It's not going to be objective for me. Yeah. So I will say it openly. But the question now is how.
I don't know whether Dr. Ningwanyamu agree with you. He is of the CPDM and also a stakeholder in education in Cameroon. But why you compliment what he just said? Yeah. I want to ask you this question. The President of the Republic has been President of the Republic, National President of the CPDMs, and CNU and the CPDM, and there is always a flow between the state and the party, with many persons considering that most of national policies are actually hashed within the party, and that many persons are using the parties to engage in some unscrupulous acts that actually run down the state.
The question you are asking is a very, very important question. And you remember last time I had a debate here with Barrister Achu where I was saying that the CPDM ought to be progressive. And then he was saying that it is best for them to be where they are, to continue to do the things they used to do in 1960. So that is the problem. That's exactly the same problem that you're bringing up. That said, you know, TV time is very, very precious. And I would rather queue up from where Solomon left, Ate left, because he was saying something important, though he was looking at it with the spectacles of a baby, so he would not be saying what I'm saying. He will not be saying what I'm saying. So I must say it the way it's supposed to be said. So because we are speaking to 25 million Cameroonians out there, to tell them that we have been looking at the different set of measuring rods and getting it all wrong. You know, when we started, I said that Cameroonians have a general problem. Number one, they don't understand problems. Number two, they don't know how to solve problems. And number three, they don't know how to create wealth. That's where all our problems go around these three basic observations and principles. Now, what is school for? School is to train someone to understand principles and to understand problems. And school also trains you to solve those problems. The question is, have our school systems been training us to understand problems? Because how do you get to understand problems? You get to understand problems by studying principles. And once you study those principles, you study them in two ways. Number one, you get the theory about the problems and the background to the problems, and then you learn the skills of how to deal with the problems that arise from there. Now you will realize that in our school system, which is based on the logical mathematical frame, we are not aware of the other intelligences that the children have. And therefore, and then even the way we have set up that education, which was given to us by the white man in 1960 just to help our children to read and write. That's why you have people going degree in this, degree in that, degree in that. But they cannot use those degrees to solve the current problems in the community. Those degrees are irrelevant to the problems in the community. That is why we might have so many universities. So we think that by having so many universities, having thousands of students in the universities, having a lot of people with masters and PhDs, having a lot of people, professors coming on television and telling lies, having a lot of people graduating from School of Agriculture who don't know how to grow a grain of rice or fish, that is not success. And you would think that because, you see, if you look at the crop of our children who go abroad, there are two categories of people who go abroad. People who are able to jump ship because they have inherent capacity. Whether you train them here badly or so, they are intelligent enough to adapt to the new system and learn what it takes to work in that system. Because they are able to adapt and work in that system doesn't mean that it was because you gave them a good foundation. It's wrong. They're able to think out of the box, and they're multidimensional and can multitask, and they can get it. But our system trains 80% of the people who cannot do that. And there are those who are left here. So some other people too will go like to America and so on. There are people who are part of this crumb. When they go to America, they stay doing the $10 per hour job, and they will never graduate from there. So you have this class of people, then you have the very top ones who make it. It is the law of nature. It doesn't matter even if it's an orphan. That law of nature allows that 5%, 10% will make it under sun and rain. So because people can make it under sun and rain, it's not a credit to what the school system is doing in Cameroon. No. So what am I saying? Our school system is not good enough. I'm saying it clean and clear because we change it. We have a lot of youth problems in Cameroon. Why? Because we're training people who are not useful. So see what the Chinese, the China is doing very well, and China has changed to be a world power, or has done so well because in the last 30 to 40 years, let's say 40 years ago, the president who was there before this one, or their chairperson or whatever you call him, did something very significant. He changed 70% of all the universities in China to become polytechnics. Then he changed the policies and sent many of his children outside to Germany, America to go and steal technology and bring it back. That's what he did. And then you will now see that they are very developed, and that development has got nothing to do with democracy and elections. So we'll be crying here democracy and elections when the bottom line is that we don't even know what to do when given the power. So the bottom line is to know what to do. And you will now ask the question, so what kind of education do we really need for Cameroon? What we have now in education is no use. This is what we need to do. Change the educational system, go from A to B, run on these rails and you make it. What do we do? Go to South Korea, go to Singapore, go to Malaysia, go to Finland and gather their curriculums from nursery school to university.
What do you think that there should be a clear paradigm shift in our
clear
education?
paradigm shift. Forget about this nonsense that you're calling education in Cameroon. It's nonsense. Watch my lips. It's nonsense. I have been around the world. I have studied in Cameroon. I studied in CPC Bali. I studied in QS. I studied in the University of Nairobi. I studied in the University of London. After that, I've traveled, been to Germany, to America, to Abu Dhabi. No, Saudi. What is that place again?
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. No, Saudi Arabia. That this rich place in
Qatar.
No, the next one by
Kuwait.
Maybe
United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, that's it. That's the city there.
Yeah,
good.
Dubai.
And then I have been to China twice or thrice, I can't remember, and I have seen what others are doing, and what we are doing here is complete bullshit. This is it. How do you know that your university system or your school system is working? I give every Cameroonian, every minister there, everybody a challenge. You import rice and fish for 300 billion francs every year. And yet you have all these universities and you have whatever, and none of your children can grow a bag of rice. That's the problem. It's much more difficult to train your children to make these phones than to grow rice. So you see, what is the point training children and having all these universities when you cannot grow the food that you eat? That is the point. And you see, Leo, you saw the president signed a text the other day appointing some people to the Cereal Grain Board or something like that.
Yes.
And that triggered my mind again, because that Cereal Grain Board was put in place for the first time in 2008 when there were the food crisis. And the Cereal Grain Board was just created to try to see how they could buffer the problems at that time and make sure that people had something to eat. So it was but okay that they should go out there, import some rice and do things and drop down the prices.
Okay.
But what they were supposed to do after that, 6 months afterwards, was to open rice farms, bring tractors and train children and so on to be growing the rice. But since then, it's 10 years. No, I don't know what they are doing. But the bottom line is, we keep importing, we keep putting people there to be importing rice. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Importing rice and fish. Good evening, Mr. Adio. I'm Edwin Nkine. Dr. Nick, you are a great man with great ideas ahead. I'm strongly behind you. Doctor, have you ever proposed ideas to this government? I don't know whether Doctor has a question for you, for an answer for you. Please tell Mr. Jarvis we should not pretend Mr. Bia is of no use to Africans in general. His damages to Africans are more than what Corona, okay? Let him and his cabal leave us alone. Tal from Boom, good evening to you. Mr. Jarvis, your way of talking is gradually changing. You are not the person we used to know on this program. Good evening to us all in the house, okay? Mr. Van is writing from Douala. What do you want him to say? Why can't the CBDM listen to Dr. James is writing from Germany. Good evening, Mr. Liu and all panelists. Please, it's important to note that 38 years of beer is a total failure. Cameroon is literally a debt trap considering the bad roads. In short, the infrastructural level is awful. We need a change of government. Luis is writing from Dubai. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The truth is the day the president will learn how to move around like late President Ahijo, things will change. Mantapa is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, Tapa. Good evening to you all, Mr. Liu. At 80 years, Paul is too much. He should step down. We know we put you there, but we are tired. Papa, please step down. Sandrine is writing from Bamenda. Boni from Boya says, greetings to you, Mr. Kum and the panelists. I think the greatest achievement of President Paul Biya in his 80 years in power is the bringing in of the B force and the competition of his friends with the government. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Biya. Just there by himself, we all know that this country will start to be Cameroon after 2035. No matter how we talk, nothing will change. Titi is writing from Boya. Hello, Mr. Liu. The most vital legacy Mr. Biya has given to us is by creating 3 presidents in one Cameroon. Sisisiku behind bars, Kamto under house arrest, and himself, which we only see on pictures in administrative offices. What a legacy. Okay, Clarion is writing from the United Arab Emirates. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to everyone on the panel. Biya's leadership has overdue. We need a change. Juan is writing from Yaoundé. There's one message I want to read. Good evening, Mr. Kum. What a program. We keep up. We are behind you. Ngong Ivo writing from Tiku. Thank you very much. Now, let's look at the fight against tribalism, nepotism, and the like. Do you think the president has helped to curb it, or it has been encouraged as we live in Cameroon today?
Well, the fight against tribalism, there are so many things that Cameroonians, maybe at the level of the civil society, do for the country. Cameroonians at the level of the opposition do for the country. Cameroonians as individuals do for the country. And at the end of the day, we may be tempted to think that Mr. Biya has a hand in all of that, which is not true. When you ask if he has been successful in fighting tribalism, I will say no.
Okay.
It is seen even at the level of his own government. Yeah. Look at his ministries. Look at his directors. Look at all the persons he appoints. Go and find out their origins. At least I'm talking to a journalist, and I believe you always carry out your investigations before you talk with your audience. Go and find out the audience. 80% of his government is made up of people of particular regions that we know of. Now, if that is the way we fight tribalism in a country, then we may say he has also succeeded at that level, which I don't think so. And you understand that as a consequence of that, the country therefore finds itself where it is today, because some people feel that they have been outrightly kept out of the system. They have been outrightly kept out of the country because it is believed when a minister in a country stands up to declare that people from a particular region can never lead the country, then you understand what we are saying. And that's the impression they give. And now you empower people, you appoint people into offices, and then they see them as individuals, transform an institution into a family something. Last 2-3 weeks, Cameroonians were bubbling about the Enam issue, where one person will take 13 members of his own family in one session. I read a comment someone made sarcastically on social media, and he said even Late Kaji in his own company could not take 13 of his children at once to work in his company. At least he takes once at a time. But when somebody sits at a NAM, for instance, a national institution, and then he takes 13 members of his own family, and he places there, and we say we should not blame Mr. Biya because he did not ask the person to do that. He didn't ask the person, but the person did it. And so what sanctions followed? Nothing. It means that he condones with it. It means that to him he sees nothing wrong with that. So, Mr. Kum, I don't think that Mr. Biya has done anything good for this country. Anyway, I don't know. It's rather unfortunate. My opening statement here when I came in was that Mr. Biya's ascension to power in this country from 1982 was a catastrophe. It is a national catastrophe. And I said, this day to me is supposed to be a day of national mourning. And even if I were to go back to agree with Jarvis when he said Cameroonians should sit and reflect, I think Cameroonians need to be reflecting on how to let Biya go, because he has seized the country and has transformed it into a personal something. He appoints people from particular regions, and then some of them have the guts to openly declare that some other people from the same nation can never lead that country. So I think that he has only contributed in dividing Cameroonians instead of uniting them. And that's why I always like to tell people, those who insist that he proves maybe unity and all whatnot, please, I always like to say, if there had been peace in this country till maybe 2016 or so, I would rather say it is thanks to the opposition, because we have not had opposition leaders in this country who are bloodthirsty. Let me take somebody like Funti, for instance. If he was a bloodthirsty leader, perhaps he should have picked up arms by since 92, perhaps to send this fire on flames. But I rather think that the person who has been threatening national unity in this country is Mr. Biya and his regime, because all what he has done is to provoke the people, and it's rather unfortunate that Cameroonians have become so inactive to what is happening. They don't react, because if you ask me as the National Communications Party Secretary for the PAP, what we tell Cameroonians is that they should be able to go out there as a person in a non-violent demonstration to let Mr. Biya and the international community understand that we are sick and fed up with him and his regime. We no longer want him at all, because I don't think, somebody said in Indian today when they were celebrating that the people of India will soon be coming out of their hardship and all whatnot. India is one of the richest divisions we have in this country in terms of resources and everything. But now they don't even have a road. And you will hear an elite of the CPT who tells the people it is now. So you take 38 years in power to tell people it's now they will come out of. And like somebody asked me a question a few minutes ago, that can we not say renovating the immobile that are more in Yaoundé is an achievement? How can you take 38 years to renovate a structure that was already built and kept? It doesn't make sense.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. The truth is Biya has actually done much and has kept to almost all his promises. He talked of grand ambition, and nobody questioned the direction of this ambition. Now he's doing his thing, fulfilling his ambitions, though in the negative, raising a people who look up upon him as God, and we complain. Tiku Felix is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Tiku and family. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I buy Dr. Nick's ideas. Look at the agriculture faculty in Boya. We pay huge sums of money as fee, of which it will yield no fruits. What do you mean by will yield no fruits? This one, good evening, sir. We all just have to forget about this country. Can you imagine they use Cameroon flags to cover the casket of the kids who died because their country failed them? Michael from Yaoundé. Okay. Okay, Michael. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's Ngu from Bamenda. I really love your program, and I am interested with the ideas of Dr. Nick to apply in our country for a better Cameroon. I hope the CPD makes use of that. I wrote a concours which we all know the result and outcome. Cameroon educational system is very low and doesn't make sense. Too much bribery and corruption. Change is all we need. Change in all the education. Mr. Biya and co are one man, one belly, and only them survive. We need change. Toto is writing from Boya. Evening, Leo, to all in the studio. Biya's only balance sheet is changing his name from Paul Biya to Biya Paul during elections. Elvis is writing from my phone. Greetings to all in the panel. I hail you, Dr. Nick. You inspired me this evening. You are indeed a raw material to be used in this country. Isidore Mekum is writing from Bamenda. Hello, sir. This is Ngenya Martin. Can we know what is wrong with our most educative media house, My Media Prime? It's been a while. We have not been able to watch your programs. Please, some persons are writing. My Media Prime is available. Just do a research on your TV. If you are no longer receiving My Media Prime, do a research on your TV. You get us. Okay. Good evening, Bertrand from Kumba. Mr. Leo, what is left in this country is just fatherland because peace and work have been killed and tampered with. This is Bia's legacy after 38. Yes, good evening to you, Mr. Leo. This is Clinton writing from Douala. I admire the way Dr. Nick always hits the most relevant points. I used to be his student and his great man. I don't know what was his great man. Okay, yes, yes.
You,
I want you to look at agriculture. The President of the Republic has called on Cameroonians to embrace agriculture. I'm sure that was 2013 or 2014 that the youth should go to the farm. What inputs have been given to the youth? So much has been talked about second generation agriculture in Cameroon. Where are we with that?
There is the second stanza of Cameroon's national anthems goes, there's a part that says, instilling them the love and gentle ways, regard of errors of the past. And if you come now to the refrain, which says, land of promise, land of glory, and you look at equally the conclusive part, which is with joy and love and peace. And I ask myself, when we look at the agricultural perspective scenario in Cameroon, looking at the universities that we have, if they are instilling in these people the agricultural techniques in love and gentle ways, if they are instilling in them the agricultural techniques that will benefit Cameroonians, that will bring them the peace, love, and unity. Because when we look at the educational system, the agricultural, not just the agricultural system per se, because if you look at the agro-pastoral show which happened in Ebolowa, presided over by the head of state, I think that was when he made that remark that Cameroonians should move to the farm, to embrace the farm. And there was a picture of the president we saw in the tractor and, you know, in the pineapple plantation farm, and since then the picture we never understood or understand how the farm ended.
The farm is there.
And secondly, if you look at after the agro-pastoral show, where even it was attended by the Nijon Fundi at the time, you ask yourself, the tractors that were supposed to be given to people, farmers in this area to do their cultivation, where are the tractors? They have been abandoned, allowed to fallow, like we have pastoral nomadism, where you allow a land to fallow so that you come and cultivate in the next year, knowing that fertility might have resumed. Now, those are steps to see that there is no what we call an effective implementation strategy. There is a policy, you institute a policy, it must be backed by implementation strategy. But the sad reality here is that the Cameroon's educational system has been based on matricule oriented. It is matricule syndrome oriented. So the matricule syndrome makes you not to think. It makes you to see every agricultural or industrial facility as more of having a matricule to sustain a 250,000 francs monthly, which you may not be going to work from Monday to Friday, going to work at your disposal. So we have a matricule oriented education. So you will not blame an ordinary agricultural student who cannot do farming, who cannot just harness even in digital agriculture. We have digital agriculture and greenhouse agriculture. We have empty abandoned buildings left and right, and we don't see these buildings being used. Even the so-called entrepreneurial universities don't run businesses. And you ask yourself, how can you call yourself an entrepreneurial university? You don't own a business. You call yourself an agricultural school. You don't own a farm. You don't even own a series of exhibition farms where students can practice. My issue here comes with an implementation strategy. The implementation strategy is so poor in such a way that it is based on a top-bottom approach, not a bottom-top approach. We keep seeing the top-bottom approach is coming because of matricule syndrome. Ask any kid, even if those who are going to private universities, doctor will bear me witness, even those who are going into schools I have trained, at the end of the day, you will see they will say they want to write the concours, they want to do this. It's because of the way the educational system has been tailored. But when we tailor our educational system to meet existing realities, to meet the hands-on activities that we see in our society, it will change. And the problem comes with the issue of mentorship in universities, because the fact that private universities have not been given that favor to automatically design their program to meet the need, rather to meet the office need of Machiku Syndrome. That's why I have a problem. All private university owners in Cameroon, they don't have the ability to issue degrees or diplomas. You must have a mentor university, and you must dance to the tone of that mentor university. And that mentor university define how you go with your curriculum, define how you structure. Let's say I have an agricultural school. I want to train agriculture students of a different perspective, but they
my question to you is simple. President Biya wants Cameroon to move towards second generation agriculture. He wants the youth to embrace agriculture. To do agriculture, we need land. We need maybe capital to get the instruments to, yes. Do they have it?
We have it, but the problem now comes in.
Okay, the youth, you have been given.
No, we said we have you are talking about land and the various infrastructures that we need. The problem is implementation. Like I said, look at University of Boya. A couple of weeks ago, we went and we saw that farm that was allocated to the university students were destroyed by some people who claim they want that to use that for a village.
Okay.
And you see the entire it was destroyed and no compensation given to the School of Agriculture. Farm practice, a big land, and they had a site that they wanted to expand their cattle rearing, and it was totally
okay. You are limiting yourself to the students who are who are studying at the agriculture.
Can I just?
I'm looking at the children who are in Jakiri today, who have been sent to go and do farming. The children who are maybe in Melong, who have been sent to farming. Are there accompanying measures to get them effectively farm?
Solomon, is your 10 minutes agriculture.
Okay.
Let me talk about it
understand.
because for the sake of the people
I
out there.
understand.
Agriculture is the mainstay that will get us out of our poverty. It's that industry that we all need to embrace. But we need to do agriculture in a way that beautiful girls, young handsome boys are happy doing the agriculture. And I have thought about it for a very long time. It's just that I don't have all the resources. But, you know, many years ago, I saw girls, young women, during, I think it was a female 8th March something, or was it 20th May? These young women were driving caterpillars and trucks and so on the 20th May Avenue, and I was so inspired by that. So we just need to put what it takes in place and train our girls, train our boys, and make the farm job, make farming a sport, make farming something great, make farming something that we all love, and then give them the tools, give them the capacities, and it will be done. Like Jarvis was saying, we don't know how to, like I had said, we don't know how to solve problems. If we knew how to solve problems, we will always craft it in such a way that it would yield fruit. You see, like I said before, a country like America, as big as America, it's very rich. It's one of the richest countries, the richest. Probably China has overtaken them, I don't know, but it's the richest country. And you just need to take away agriculture and they will collapse. And again, I was thinking, I think there are more than about 1.4 billion people in China, if I'm not mistaken. And there are about 1.6 or so billion people in Africa. And this is the interesting thing. China is able to grow enough food to feed 1.4 people. And still
1.4 billion people.
1.4 billion people, and still feed Africa. Are you getting the irony? And still feed Africa. So there's a problem. And like I said, we just need to think it right. In that 2013, President Paul Biya made available 121 billion for youth programs.
An emergency program.
Emergency, yes. Yeah. But that emergency program, some very smart people took it and said they were going to make footballs or something for children, and that was it. And you can't hear anything about it. And I remember being on a CRTV program with Mr. Wine Pongam saying this is the way the 1.2 billion should be used. In fact, if you had asked me how should that have been used, I said at the time, I said, look, we have about 356 what do you call them, subdivisions in the nation, you know, and you have there's a credit facility with what we call the Exim Bank, the Exim Bank of America. There's also an Exim Bank in Canada and so on. You could go to this Exim Bank, you know, take like the 121 billion, go to the to America, to the company that is making caterpillars and tractors and all this heavy equipment, buy you know, go into sign a partnership with those companies using the Exim Bank formula, you would give them, let's say, 100 billion, and you'll be able to take equipment worth 1,000 billion. Are you getting what I'm saying? And then you come and share this equipment into pools, into technological pools in every commune. And then now you recruit children and teach them how to use this equipment to do the roads. They will be able to open all our roads into the interior. You will teach them to do the roads in the town. Teach them to use this equipment to open farms. Because the problem with our farm is that we are still with the cutlass and so on. That's tedious and it's stupid. There's equipment to help you do the hard labor. So, for instance, what will we do, for instance, practically? Take some of those caterpillars, take some youths, go to that land by Sananga in the Mbam there. You know, do you know how, if you have seen how you can use bulldozers to clear fields for you take a bulldozer, a D8, and you put over there. You take another bulldozer, a D8, and you put over there. Then you take this heavy chain, you link to this other caterpillar and link to this one, give them a space of about 100 meters or whatever, or 50 meters, just as the case may be, and let them drive through the savannah. That thing just rakes the grass for you. Are you getting what I'm saying? And then you come back now with the tractors, and then you run through and then uproot some roots and so on. And then you do the farm work with the tractors. Teach children these things. Build camps for them where they can be. Show them how these things are done, so that you give every youth, let's say, every youth about 1 hectare of land. You provide the seeds, you provide everything so that they can grow the seeds. Teach the children now to be using by their heads to tend and watch after the plants and the animals. They shouldn't be using their energy to be breaking fire. No. Use machines to do that stupid hard work. Then let the children use their brains to grow the food. And then when they grow the food, we do cooperatives so that the cooperatives can buy the food and sell to Gabon, sell to our cities and so on. So you create a system that works. It would have been effective, but they took that 121 billion and played football with it. It's terrible.
I played football with it. 38 years, I don't know, I wanted to ask this question to him. But I want us to look at President Paul Biya, because before he became President of the Republic, this Anglophone crisis existed already, because he headed a commission that had to do with providing solutions to the problem. 38 years after, there is a war in the southwest and northwest region. Is that a failure to him, or you think that there are some forces behind who want to put him under very difficult situations?
I think that President Paul Biya's balance sheet has been very catastrophic, but the most striking catastrophic part of it is the military response to the Anglophone crisis. And again, we find ourselves in the midst of the Anglophone crisis, and we still go to create commissions. We've created, I'm sure Dr. Nick will agree with me that we've created more than one commission to respond to the Anglophone crisis after the military response, and it still has not solve any problem. We move from the Bilingualism Commission to other commissions that I don't even know of them, and it looks like we're still going to create other commissions to follow up the commissions that have been created. So at the end of the day, we're moving around commissions, from commissions to commission, and I think that President Paul Biya, maybe he is inspired by commission because he happened to be part of a commission that was created by President Amadou Haijo to look into the Anglophone crisis some years back before he even became president. But today, the same President Paul Biya at home says that he doesn't know whether there is an Anglophone problem or not. And then he goes to the Paris Peace Conference and says there is an Anglophone problem. And so he keeps on contradicting himself, but creating commissions to solve the problem that he doesn't recognize. So it's some kind of paradox. But again, I've said the biggest mistake he has ever made was to declare a military response to the Anglophone crisis. And I think that today, the biggest commission the president should create is to create a commission of reconciliation. I don't know if it's going to take a national dimension or an international dimension, but I really think that an international dimension of our reconciliation process would really help us, because the Anglophone crisis has escalated to a point where we no longer trust ourselves as a nation to sit down and talk about it. We've lost trust amongst ourselves. Both parties have lost trust to themselves. Even the the national mediators, such as the civil society, who could act as mediators at the local level, no longer know whether they should trust the government or they should trust the armed group. So it's becoming more complicated than we thought, and the commissions that have been created have basically failed us. The commissions that we've been creating decades back have really failed us, and I think we should have been able to learn the lessons from the commissions that have failed us. We saw the creation of the consortium back in 2016 that advocated for a peaceful advocacy, that used a peaceful approach to advocate for the Anglophone problem, which is a legitimate right of Anglophone. But we saw a government that went towards these Anglophone leaders who did the consortium, tried to dialogue with them, but the next day we saw them being arrested and they were called terrorists. And today the situation has escalated to what we are.
Okay, it's Sandy Bright from Douala. Mr. Liu, with all due respect, I salute you all. We are in a country where the educational system is very backward. That is why we lack experts in the agricultural sector. Good evening, Mr. Liu. This man, Popol, after killing Mr. Chedwa, writing from Douala, I think we need a president who will be able to see the problems of this country and be able to make ways to solve them, starting with our educational system. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Dr. Nick is really still Pew. The CPM syndrome has not taken over him yet. I wish someone listens to him. Okay. Wow. Hello, Mr. Liu. Good evening. I apologize for coming late. Dr. Nick said it all. CRM have failed and still failing. Their best achievement is not but corruption and tribalism, which he has planted in the minds of Cameroonians. I remember I wrote the entrance exam in Yaoundé as a laboratory technician, and one man asked all of us from the southwest and northwest to be in one hall. More than 2,000 people going in for 7 positions of medical lab. Who will shame Cameroon? London Musa. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's Patinik writing from Bamenda, Cameroon. It's all education is all a scam. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. This is John from Limbe. Mr. Liu, I was expecting the panelists to expatiate on the economy, socially, and politically. President Paul Biya has, I believe that explained, has a balance sheet. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Cameroon, as a political whole, from agriculture to the highest ministerial position, can never do well with the Biya regime. Daniel is writing from Dubai. Monzi from Limbe says, hi to all. Help me to tell Travis that the system of a country defines what the country is. Being in the public-private sector, the system in Cameroon has trained citizens that can only live on money corruptly acquired. Beer and and the cabal. There's Monday from Limbe. Please, when you write things that are not respectful, I won't read them. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Please extend this to the doctor. When I listen to him speak, I'm so happy, but I think something is lacking. I would love him to own one of the best hospitals in this country, so that when he trains, he also employs and others will follow. As now he is still operating like Cameroon government. Alain is writing. He's writing from Bamenda. Okay. This is Mary writing from Bamenda. I don't want to hear that name again. Which name are you talking about? Now, on the 6th of December this year, we are going to have regional elections. Decentralization has been existing in theory since 1996. We're going to see the full implementation of that process, going by what we see already in the making.
Okay, let me say I will just keep out of that question rapidly and discuss something else rather.
No.
When I say something else, what I'm saying is this. You are talking of regional elections on the 6th of November.
Yes.
What I'm saying
December.
Of December. As a member of the PAP, we don't even talk elections in this country, because we don't believe in elections, because there is no need going for an election in this country. we had taken our stance as a political party that anything that has to do with elections organized by this regime, we are not and we can never be a party to it.
Okay,
because
your assessment
when
of
we talk about
assessment of the decentralization process since 1996.
That's why I said I was going to skip and talk about something else now, because when we talk about decentralization, it has never been, and I don't think it can ever be under this regime. It takes me now back to the 1.2 billion doctor was talking about in agriculture, because doctor even explained things that are even a little, I would say, more advanced that this regime may even not understand, or they simply understand and will not want to implement. But I want to bring it back again to maybe, let me say, a local level. This 1.2 billion, 121 billion, thank you, Doc, could be divided to the 10 regions. You see, equally, maybe let's just say 10 billion per region. And then the children from or youth from each of the regions with respect to their subdivisions and could apply for subventions from that fund, you see, so that they easily have access to the funds, and then regional delegates of agriculture could dispatch persons to assist and accompany them and see how they actually put these funds into practice. But when the government creates or comes up with such an initiative and then banks all the money in Yaoundé, and a child from my village in Oku or from Menchum needs to sit there and apply to Yaoundé to get subvention, you understand, like I earlier mentioned here, that at the end of the day, at times when we criticize the regime, it is not like they do not do things, but that they do things that favor them in their way of doing things. They do it in such a way that the money remains in Yaoundé. Then everybody must apply and send to Yaoundé when they claim this decentralization. And now at the end of the day, what happens is that they sit in Yaoundé and select particular persons that they know, and then dispatch the money to a few. And so at one point in time, you discover that the money that was earmarked to enhance or subvent youth projects in agriculture, at the end of the day, it filters itself into the hands of a few, such that people even sit in ministries and then they call their cousins and nephews in the villages to fake projects overnight and then table them and their finance. Why? Because the decentralization is not there, and like I say, I don't think it can ever be there. These are things, it's the same thing with the Constitutional Council and other things. These are things that have been on paper for more than 20 years. And like I earlier mentioned, we cannot sit in a country where human beings have a limited lifespan. We shall all die, but the country will stay, like Cardinal Tumi once said. We all made the country, we shall all go, but the country will remain. But you cannot sit in government for 38 years and all what you do are promises. All what you do is on paper, and you think that we can decree one thing today and it takes 38 years before we start implementing it, and you talk about decentralization. So that's just to tell you that with the December state elections, the PAP has nothing to do as far as elections are concerned in this country, because when you talk about elections, Mr. Bia alone has or knows the political calendar in this country. Even the people of the opposition, they don't have an idea. Elekam are his people. The Constitutional Council are his people. He sits alone, uses the different institutions he has put in place, organizes everything. Once he feels that everything is set for him to declare his own victory, now he tells you guys on a Monday morning that we are voting on Saturday.
Okay, very
so I want to think that not only we had taken our stance never to partake in any elections organized by the system, but the decentralization is not there, and I don't think that it can ever be there under this particular regime. And maybe I should be concluded by saying that we say and we keep saying, if Mr. Bia loves his country and he thinks that he can now keep personal interest away from public interest, he should resign alongside his government.
Now, very briefly, I want, at least you're in the health domain now, you should give us an appraisal of 38 years of Mr. Bia's engagement in health, very briefly, because we're out of time.
Health is a very
infrastructure in
health is a very complex thing, and you see on social media the other day was a picture of a midwife from somewhere in the north of, showing a bamboo bed on which they do deliveries. So that tells you the state of health in the country. And as a medical doctor, I would tell you that it's very, very poor. There was one lady who was challenging that I should come up with a hospital. And if you're listening to me, I've said that I'm going to build a reference hospital in Douala and in Yaoundé. The only thing that I don't have is the resources. If I had the resources, it would be done. It's not an issue of authorizations. I'll be given the authorization. That's not a problem, because that's where we need to train our children, But the unfortunate thing is, affair serious. Now, that said, the health situation, we really need to do something about it. We are below standards. There's no question about that. The other thing that I wanted to mention was you said something about decentralization. just to quickly, say that whether the PAP is going for elections or not is some objet, in the sense that the problem of this country are not solved by elections. We have issues that I tried to show to you, and I demonstrated to you that even if you like to change the CPD and put it today and put the MRC or put the SDF
or put the PAP
nothing will change, because the mindset is below bar. That's the problem. Until that mindset goes above, you can change A and put B or C or whatever, have the best elections, nothing will work. We as Cameroonians, we need to move forward and something will work. Now that said, we've been discussing confederation a lot, and this current decentralization with the special status for Anglophones is just something I don't understand. But for the West Cameroon, East Cameroon problem to be solved, we have said it time and again that number one, as from now, we need a new dialogue, which is sincere, which is genuine, and which is inclusive, to actually face the issues and deal with them. And the major national dialogue did not succeed, because when we were going for that dialogue, we were going for the dialogue with an old mindset. And then, like our brother Solomon reminded us, when His Excellency President Paul Biya was at the Paris Peace Summit or whatever, talking to Mr. Mo Ibrahim, he acknowledged that in the past they had been trying to change Anglophones into Francophones and assimilate them, which did not work. And therefore, from that time going forward, Anglophones should be given more breathing space and should be left to be their own. But he was making that statement when the major national dialogue had already taken place under the new dispensation, where it was more of tightening the ropes and making sure that Anglophones don't move a step. So you see, so now, when the president made that statement after the major national dialogue, and resolutions after the major national dialogue had been tailored to give something else, it shows that we need a new dialogue which would actually reopen the whole thing again, so that we redefine things. So this other decentralization we're having now is just an exercise, but the real thing is going to come. The real thing is going to come, and the nation will be decentralized at two levels. The first one would be a confederation where we would define West Cameroon and East Cameroon with their governments and everything clearly marked out, with their budgets, security, all those things will be defined, clearly defined. Who is president, when it's an Anglophone president, when it's a Francophone president, when it's an Anglophone vice president, and so on. All those things will be clearly defined. Then now, because the Southwesterners are always complaining that Northwesterners are marginalizing them. The people in Manfe, even in the Southwest, complain that Bakwere people are marginalizing them. So if we were going just by, and the people in Bakwere, they want to be Dualas, the Dualas. So it's a mix-up thing. So we cannot go by that. So what we're going to do is make sure that we cause decentralization within the confederal states, so that working as West Cameroon, the people in Southwest can have their breathing space from people in the Northwest, because even as they speak, my brothers from the Northwest can also be very terrible, And then, even in East Cameroon, you decentralize so that the people of the South don't sit on the people of Marwa. It's very, very important. And during that decentralization, we make sure that we define the place of governors and SDOs and so on, because if you don't sideline governors and SDOs and so on, this country will never develop.
Okay, this country will never develop. I'll take two messages and we are done for today. From Madame Jackie Bokova, he is having a dead balance sheet. Okay, Madame Jackie from Bokova, good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Leo. The only legacy Mr. Biya has left in Cameroon is to create war in the nation. Okay, Cyril from Yaoundé Pro. Crown it all, fish to start rotten for head from Achiring Wa Primus, writing from our foot. Good evening to you, Achiring Wa. Please, Leo, good evening. Ask the doctor to give me his number. I want to talk to him in private. Can you just write me after the program? I'll send the doctor's number. All we had for 38 years has just been a dream. The student with degree can't work. They ask for working experience. How will the students and graduates not to remain jobless? Change, we need to tell the doctor if he is serious. He should fight for a change in medical education. I'm sure he's doing that already. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Dr. Nick should resign from the CPDM. It doesn't fit him. I don't think his views are really accepted in that party. Team B's writing from Douala. Atiku Felix says Dr. Nick is an icon, gathering knowledge outside and implementing back home. See how many thousands of people benefit from it. Congrats, doctor. Let CPDM see the difference from Crise field member and copy his secrets. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's Favor from Douala. We are in a country where I have never seen a minister who opted to resign on his or her own. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The educational standard in Cameroon is very poor. School in Cameroon is a scam. It's Egbe. Writing from Limbe cannot be a scam because I am a product of schooling in Cameroon. Mr. Liu, I love your program. It's the best. My next president will be Dr. Nick James. He's writing from Germany. I'm Kadiri from Greek Cyprus. Hello, Mr. Liu. Tribal extremism, ethnic hatred, and hate speech, such as les Anglophone, 2 cubes of sugar, Graphi people, Kamnogo, les moutons, strangers, second-class citizens, less intelligent people, dogs, just to name a few. These are words used by state ministers loyal to the Unity Palace to tear Cameroon apart for the past 38 years in power, and nobody has been held responsible. Okay. I have to end here, unfortunately, for this edition of the program. Dr. Nick Angwanyam, thank you for coming to give an appraisal of President Biya's 38 years stay at the helm of Cameroon.
Thank you very much. As I said, the president has been trying to do his best, but he has people whom he has put in place who care more about themselves. You know, they would tell you that they don't want to do something because they think that they were going out of the president's prescriptions, but when they are stealing, they don't ask the president for prescriptions.
Thank you, Tamai Jarvis, for coming.
Thank you, Leonard. Doctor just spoke my mind. I was about talking about the issue of people not taking responsibilities. Luckily, Doctor just concluded by what I would have equally highlighted. My view, my plea for Cameroonians is that we should move from ABC syndrome, accuse, blame, condemn, but we should start taking individual initiative and responsibility to say that since when the source is dirty, maybe you start from where you see the dirtiness of the source and you start moving and cleaning. It begins, the change we want starts from me, from you, and from all of us. So it is we and us, not Bia and we.
Okay, we equally want to say thank you to you, Mr. Jane. Yes, coming from Yaoundé.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Kum, and I want to say it's been a pleasure being here with you, and I will simply conclude by saying that Cameroonians should take their responsibility and ask Mr. Bia to leave, because there is nothing good that can come from him. That's all I can say as of now. And just to also remind, I want to tell Doug that he said whether the PAP or which other party, I want to simply reiterate that if actually we have boycotted elections, it's because we actually noted that through elections nothing can come good in this country, and that's why we don't go in such elections as the PAP. It's not a matter of the level or whatsoever. Okay. It's a matter of the system that cannot work and does not permit anything to happen through elections in this country.
Thank you very much, Ati, for coming.
Thank you, Leo. And I think that to conclude, I'll say that Cameroonians are going through a lot. Their suffering has actually exposed them to be more creative. And I think that we cannot completely deny that we've made progress in education. We still have a lot to do, but I think that there's a level of progress that we're making that we should recognize. And what we should be doing, like Dr. make mention of, I think the mindset of young Cameroonians have not really been worked upon. There's this mindset of, I would just want to have my degree and go out and then I look for a job. We have to work on the mindset of young Cameroonians that they could be job creators themselves. Because I was exchanging with a colleague, a friend of mine at the University of Buea today, and what I heard from him is not something I would like to share on this platform, but I really want to say that a lot of young people, we have the potential that we can turn things around in this country, but we tend not to believe in ourselves, we tend not to believe in our institutions, and the more we don't believe in our institutions, the more things become difficult. I know that a lot of things have to be done, but equally we need to start by believing in an institution and thinking that we can use what we have to turn things around.
Okay, we want to thank the production team, to you, Desmond, Christian, Eli, and to you, Tambe Bryant. We also want to seize this opportunity to wish a happy 38th anniversary for President Paul Biya, because as he said in the company of the French president, he's not president because he wants to, but because he can. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.